number 16 of your book. We know that air is present around us, and in fact this is one of the essential qualities that we have on earth which makes our planet very unique. And we also cannot survive without air. You can live without food, you can live without water for a few days, but without air, even 3 minutes of it is impossible. You try closing your nose, pinch your nose, and you start and you count and you see by the watch, it won't be more than few seconds or maybe a minute or two more, and you will have to open your nose, otherwise you will not be able to survive. Okay, so air is something which is essential for us. Now coming on to the properties of air. Air is tasteless. You breathe in, you don't feel any taste in your mouth. It is odorless. You don't even have the smell, you don't even feel the smell of the air. Odor means smell. It doesn't have any smell. Of course, it carries the smell of things around. If you're passing through a garden, you will have the smell of the flowers. If you're passing near a drain, you will get the smell of the drain. If the food is being cooked, it carries the smell of the things that where it is, of the things around, but it itself doesn't have any smell. Air is invisible. You cannot see air. We know it is all around us, but we can't see air. Okay. Now coming on to, these are some of the properties. Another few of the properties is it occupies space. You blow into a balloon, the size of the balloon inflates. That means air occupies space. Air has mass. You take two balloons, hang them on the scale. One side will be having, you blow a balloon, and one side you keep a deflated, unblown balloon. You will see that the balloon which has air will, that's the side of the scale, will dip down, and it shows that air has some mass. It exerts pressure. See, when you are blowing air into a balloon, you will see that the balloon is exerting the pressure on the skin of the balloon. That is why it is blowing out, it is coming out. And it also has energy. You leave this balloon, the air will, you just blow some air and just leave it like that balloon. You will see that it spins and it goes around, which means air has energy. This is a deflated balloon. It doesn't have any air in it. Now if I blow into this, see, it was occupying the space. That is why the balloon was moving. Now air has mass. If I take this balloon which is deflated and I take another balloon in which the air is blown, and I compare their weight, the balloon which has air in it will have little more weight. So that means air has mass. Now air exerts pressure. See, I am blowing air into this balloon. It is exerting a pressure on the skin of the balloon. That is why the skin is expanding. Air has energy. See this, and it flew away. Okay. So that was the energy which it was carrying. Now we all know that moving air is called wind, and we feel this wind. It is only when the wind is blowing that we feel the presence of air around us. You can do this with a pinwheel. Make a pinwheel of paper. It is given in your book how to make it. And even on a very still day, if you just shake your hands like this, you will see that the pinwheel starts moving. Or if it is a windy day, you will see without your doing the shaking, the pinwheel will move. So moving air is called wind. Now to show that air occupies space, we can perform an activity. You all can do it at home. I'll explain how to do it. Take a tub filled with water. Now take a glass which is straight and try pushing it inside this water. Absolutely keeping the glass absolutely straight. You will see that the glass doesn't go down very easily. You have to apply lots of pressure. But when you tilt the glass a little bit, you will see certain bubbles coming out, and the glass is going inside the water very easily. Now why does this happen? This happens because the glass, which appears empty to us, it appears that there is nothing in the glass, also has air in it. So when we push directly, the air doesn't get any space to move out and let the glass go inside. So when we are pushing it, this air which is inside doesn't have any space to move away. So it does not allow the glass to go inside easily. But when you tilt the glass, some air from the glass comes out as the water is entering in the glass. That is why you see these bubbles, and now it is very easy for the air to for the glass to go inside the tub. So that was an activity to show that air occupies space. Now we come to atmosphere. We know that there is a thick blanket of air that surrounds the earth, and this layer of air is called the atmosphere. The benefit of this atmosphere is that it protects us from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. So sun is giving out certain rays which are not good for us. These rays are ultraviolet rays. They can cause skin cancer. So these ultraviolet rays of sun are protected by this. They are stopped by this blanket of air, which is called atmosphere. And also this blanket of air helps in maintaining the correct kind of temperature. Otherwise, when the sun goes, if we had no air, it will become very cold. Okay, and when the sun is there, we will get all the heat, it will become very hot. So this atmosphere maintains the temperature of the earth, and of course it contains certain gases which are essential for life on earth. Okay, the atmosphere extends up to the height of 1600 kilometers, but it is not the same kind of thickness that we see on all the levels. Okay, the atmosphere is thickest when it is near the surface of the earth, and as you go higher up from the surface of the earth, you will see that the atmosphere becomes thinner or less denser. The number of molecules in the air becomes lesser, and as you go up higher, there is no atmosphere. So when you say that the air becomes thinner, we say air becomes rarer. Its density reduces. It is densest, or it has maximum number of molecules near the surface of the earth. Now we come to the composition of air. Air is a mixture of many gases. It is not only one kind of gas, it is a mixture of many gases. The maximum amount of gas that is present in the atmosphere is nitrogen, which is about 78% of the air. Then you have oxygen, which is about 21% of the air, and rest of it. So if you add them, you are left with barely 1%. Okay, so 1% is of this 1% also 0.94% is made up of noble gases, mainly argon. Then carbon dioxide, which is required by the plants for photosynthesis, is present in 0.03%. That means very less percent. Along with it, you have certain water vapor which is present. Now this water vapor can be variable. Okay, the place which is near to the water body will have more water vapors. The place which is away from any water body will have less water vapors. It will have dust particles, it will have smoke particles, it will have certain pollutants also. So that is the composition of air of a place. Okay. Now we know that air contains oxygen, and we have to prove it. So it is very simple. Burning will not happen. If you want to burn anything, it has to happen in the presence of oxygen. Okay, normally things do not burn without oxygen. So oxygen is essential for burning also. Now when you burn a candle, you light up a candle, the wick of the candle starts burning. So this burning candle, you put a transparent glass over it. You will see after some time this candle will burn for some time, then it will extinguish or it will blow down. Why this happens? Because there is no fresh air coming when it is covered with a glass. So whatever oxygen that is present in that glass, once it gets consumed, it is used for burning, then there is no oxygen present in the glass and the candle dies away. So that shows that air contains oxygen. Okay, and how much oxygen it contains, that we will be learning in the next activity. Okay, we know that oxygen supports burning. Now, if we have to find out how much oxygen is present in the air, we can do it with an activity to show the proportion of oxygen. You have to take a tub with you can take a stand, place a candle on it, and put a tube over the candle which is burning. This tube has to be calibrated. You can divide this tube, number this tube, and put 5 marks on it. Okay. Now leave this candle burning for some time. After some time, the candle will extinguish on its own because it is not getting any oxygen. So we know oxygen is required for burning. So when it is not getting any oxygen, it will extinguish or it will blow out on its own. But when it blows out, you will see that the water level in this tube has risen, and it has risen up to 1 mark. Okay, up to the point where you have made 1 mark. Okay, now this proves that the air in this tube, there was air present in this tube, and about 1 part of it is oxygen, and remaining we know is nitrogen, and little bit of other gases are also present. So this is the way to show that oxygen is about 1 part and nitrogen is about 4 parts. So this is an experiment to prove the proportion of oxygen that is present in air. Now let us come to the various gases that are present in air. We know that nitrogen is about 78% of makes the atmosphere. About 78% of the air that is there in the atmosphere is made up of nitrogen. It does not support burning. Nitrogen is a gas which does not help anyways in burning. So what is it? Is it important for us? Yes, it is very essential gas for us, for living beings also. Plants require nitrogen. That is why you put fertilizers like urea and other nitrogen, nitrous oxide and all those things. It is very, very essential for plants, and because of plants it is essential for us. Our body is made up of cells which contain some proteins. All these proteins are made up of nitrogen. So these proteins are compounds of nitrogen, and that is why otherwise chemically this is not a gas which is used for burning. So in a way it is, if you see the uses of it, it is essential for the living beings, but it doesn't support any kind of burning. It doesn't help us in any other way. There are other uses of it also. Okay. Now we come to oxygen, which is essential for us, for all living beings. It is about 21% in the atmosphere. It is produced during photosynthesis. It is required for respiration. We breathe in, and when we breathe in, we take in oxygen. This oxygen burns the food that we've eaten, and it burns that food, and that is how we get our energy. Okay, so oxygen is very, very essential. Now as you go higher up in the atmosphere, the amount of oxygen reduces. So that is why you would know that mountaineers carry oxygen cylinders when they go up. People who live in mountain area are generally reddish in complexion because their blood automatically gathers more RBCs to take in whatever amount of oxygen is present. Okay, so oxygen. Now we come to carbon dioxide. It is about 0.03%. It is produced when something burns, and it is produced by respiration in living beings. Air contains carbon dioxide. If we leave, we know that air contains carbon dioxide. If we leave lime water, which is tuna, exposed to air for some time, it is transparent initially, but if you leave it for some time, it will react with the carbon dioxide that is present in the air, and it will turn milky. So we know that air also contains carbon dioxide. And then we know that there are noble gases also present in air. We basically argon, which is maximum in the maximum amount. Apart from these 5 noble gases, there is one more noble gas, that's helium, but we will be talking about the 5 noble gases that are present in the atmosphere. So they are argon, xenon, krypton, neon and radon. These gases are called noble gases because they do not react with anything very easily. Okay, so these gases are also inert gases, okay, which do not react with the other gases. Now they are, out of these all noble gases, argon is present in maximum amount in the atmosphere. Now what are the uses? If I talk about the uses, neon, you would have heard of neon signs, neon lights. So neon is basically used for making these things. Then you have argon and radon. They are basically used in the health industry. Radon basically is used while you're taking out the X-rays and all, and argon similarly is used in the health industry. So that was about noble gases. Now we come to water vapor. We know that water vapor is also present in the atmosphere, and the amount of water vapor that is present in the atmosphere varies from place to place. If a place is near the sea or ocean, or it is near a river, then that place will have more water vapor as compared to the place which is in a which is far away from the sea, or which is in an inland area which doesn't have any big water body. Okay, so it varies from place to place and also from time to time. During the rainy season, you will have more water vapor present in the atmosphere as compared to the during the summers. In summers, you will not have any water vapor or very less amount of water vapor present in the atmosphere. Now, the amount of water vapor that is present in the atmosphere is called the humidity, or the amount of water vapor that is present in the air. It is called the humidity. Okay, so you know, you would have heard your parents, your elders speaking, oh, it's so humid. During the rainy season it becomes very humid. Why? Because there is more amount of water vapor that is present in the atmosphere. Now water vapor is essential for water cycle. Water cycle means the evaporation of water taking place. It goes up into the atmosphere, it condenses, forms cloud, it rains again, so precipitation. So that all is called the water cycle. So water vapor have to be present in the atmosphere to make this water cycle function. Okay. Now we come to dust particles and smoke. So these are also present in the atmosphere, in the air. And again, they are in variable amount. That means it depends from place, it varies from place to place and from time to time. Again, by place to place. See, if a place has lots of green cover, it doesn't have any very big factories, doesn't have any vehicle movement, that place will have less smoke, less pollution, because what is there? And if it is all covered with green trees, there will be less dust also. Again, it depends on time to time. So when during the daytime, when there is lots of traffic on the road, you will have more smoke and more dust particles. Again, it will depend on place to place. If a place is in a desert area, it will have more dust particles. So it is variable. These things vary depending on where we are, which place we are, and what is the season or time of the year. Okay, you can see these dust particles in the air when you enter a cinema hall. It is all dark, but you can see the focus light when it comes, you know, the cinema hall beam, the movies when it is projected, in that you see certain small particles in the air. So that is the dust particles that are present in the air. This effect of seeing the dust particle in the air is called the Tyndall effect also, but we will learn more about Tyndall effect when we go to bigger classes. So you can see these dust particles. Sometimes when you open your window very slightly during the morning and the sun is coming inside, you can see the sun. With the sunbeam, you can see small particles in the air, in that sunbeam only. So that is the amount of dust that is present around us. Now we don't see it any in this normal way, but there is a particular time or the particular way the light is falling in which you can see these dust particles. Okay. So now this smoke and dust are very harmful for our health. If we breathe in these smoke and dust, then it will affect our lungs, it will affect our respiratory system, we might fall sick. So therefore, it is always advised to breathe from your nose, because in your nose you have, in the nasal cavity, that's in this area, you will have small hair and you will have mucus present, which is released by the internal lining of the nose. And this mucus traps in all the dust and the germs which it can trap in, and the hair also trap in. So when you breathe in, inside your lungs, the fresh air and the clean air goes. But if you breathe from your mouth, then there is nothing stopping this dust and the smoke particles. So you will breathe in that also. That is why it is called an unhealthy habit to breathe from your mouth. you should always try to breathe from the nose only. Okay. Now, how does this smoke and dust particles come in the air? One reason of air pollution, it's called air pollution also. The more the smoke in the air, the more polluted the air is. So one reason, and one very important and a big reason, is burning of fuel. When you burn fuel like coal, petrol, diesel, all these release smoke in the air, and that causes air pollution. All these factories which are working, which are using these things, you would see that they have huge tall chimneys, because the smoke is then released up in the air at a certain height, so that the people who are living around are not affected. Smoke is actually warm air along with certain dirt particles, certain particles of carbon. So when they are released higher in the air, the warm air always rises up. Because of that rising up, the dust particles also go up, and the people who are living in that area are not affected. So that is why tall chimneys are built for the factories. Okay. Then you would have also observed that people who are standing as traffic police on the busy crossroads, you would see that they always wear a mask. Reason is the vehicles are releasing too much of fumes and smoke. So these particles can cause harm to the people who are standing on the road always. That is why traffic police people are always wearing masks to protect themselves from this kind of pollution. Now we come to the next topic, and that is that air supports life. How does it support life? We all know that oxygen is essential for us to live, and oxygen is the only gas that is present on the earth. So that is why you see life only on earth so far. There might be life on other planets also, we don't know. But so far what we know of is that life exists on earth, and one important reason is that oxygen is present on earth, and all living beings need oxygen for life, because oxygen is required to burn the food that we eat. If that food that we eat, we say that why do we eat food? We eat food because it gives us energy. How does it give us energy? That food inside our body is burnt. Okay, it reacts and it gives us energy. Now this happens through the process of respiration. So the process of breakdown of food into carbon dioxide, water and energy is called respiration. Okay, so that is respiration, and for respiration we require oxygen. You and I and all other animals which live on land can breathe in oxygen through air. Okay, you use your nose, you can breathe in through your nose. Even plants can take in oxygen from the stomata, and insects through their spiracles. What about the animals that live in water? And what about the animals that live in, or the organisms that live in the deep inside the soil? So how do they get their oxygen? This is one question that we will be answering now. We all know that we can breathe in oxygen from the air, from the oxygen that is present in air. But what about the animals and the living organisms that live either in water or live in the soil? So how do they get their oxygen from? So they also need oxygen, and they get the oxygen from the animals that live in water, get it from water, because oxygen or air is dissolved in water, and we can prove this through an activity that all these gases are present in water. How? You take a beaker of water and heat it slowly. So when you start heating it slowly, you will see that there are bubbles being formed in that water. Even you can try it at home. Take a pan full of water and keep it on the gas and observe that water. The water is not yet boiling. When it boils, then there are more bubbles. But when it starts getting warmer, then only these bubbles start coming. These bubbles are the air that is dissolved in the water, and this air starts coming out. Because when you heat water, the solubility of air in water decreases and it starts coming out, and therefore we see these bubbles. So that means when the water is at normal temperature, there is air that is dissolved in water. So it is this air that the animals that live or the plants that live in water take in. How do they do it? Like fish takes in oxygen which is dissolved in water in the air, through the air that's dissolved in water through their gills. Similarly, plants which live in water, if they are floating plants, they have the stomata on the upper surface. Normally, stomata is present on the underside of the leaf, but for the floating plants, stomata is present on the upper surface. Like on lotus and all, you will see that the stomata is present on the upper surface of the leaf. So they can take in the oxygen from the air also. But if the plant is completely submerged in water, that is completely inside the water, Vallisneria, plants like Vallisneria, they take in water, they take in oxygen which is dissolved in the water through their surface. Okay. Similarly, now we come to soil. In the soil also air is present, it is dissolved. Or it is present in the air pockets. See, air is basically made up of soil. Soil is basically made up of small particles. So between these particles there are certain gaps, and between these gaps you will find that air is dissolved. Like soil, you have these soil particles. Between these soil particles there are these gaps. In these gaps you will find that air is present. Okay. So these, how do we know that air is present in soil also? Again, you take a pot of plant, keep it absolutely dry for about 4-5 days. Do not give it water. Okay, keep it in sun. It should be very dry and hard. You pour some water on it and you will see when you're pouring water, there are bubbles that are coming out of that water. Now where are these bubbles coming from? These bubbles are coming from the air that was dissolved in the soil, and when the water is entering, this air is coming out. So that proves that air is present in the soil also. Okay, so now plant, their roots also need to breathe. That is why you would see when you are planting something new, you first do a little bit of digging, okay, so that you create these air pockets so that the air reaches the root of the plant, or if you're putting a seed, the seed of the plant. So plants' roots breathe through the root hair, and these root hair go into the pockets, air cavities, and they breathe in from there. Similarly, earthworms. We know that earthworms live inside the soil. Now they also breathe through their moist skin the air that is present inside the soil only. That is why when it rains, so when it rains there is lots of water that's coming up, and this water takes all the air space away. So there is no oxygen or no air available to these earthworms. So during rainy seasons you will see that these earthworms come out to breathe, because all the air is now, whatever space was there for air is now covered with water. During rains, it rains heavily. So the water takes up all the spaces that are present between the soil particles. There is very less air or oxygen present for these earthworms. That is why during the rainy season these earthworms come out. And normally we don't see these earthworms. It's not that they are not present. They are present inside the soil only, but during the normal seasons they are getting the oxygen. But during the rainy season, when it is raining very heavily, they are not getting any oxygen, and that is why they come out to breathe. Now, this was about oxygen that's present, and we all need oxygen for respiration to get energy from the food that we eat. The other important gas that supports life is carbon dioxide. We all know that plants require carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. So it is this gas, carbon dioxide, with which they make their own food. And you and I and all other organisms, living organisms, depend on plants for their food, directly or indirectly. We might eat the plants directly, or we might eat the other things which are eating plants. Okay, so either directly or indirectly we get our food from the plants, because plants are the only ones which are called the producers. All of us are consumers. So carbon dioxide is essential for plants to make their own food. The other gas was, as I was mentioning, is nitrogen, which is again a very important gas for all living organisms. Why? Because it is what is required to make proteins. You, me, animals, plants, they all need proteins, and this protein has nitrogen in it. Okay. Now plants, how do plants take in nitrogen? They take it especially from the soil itself. Okay, so when now how does this nitrogen reach the soil? During the rainfall or during the thundering, lightning and thundering, the nitrogen mixes with the oxygen. It becomes water soluble and it mixes with the rainwater and it reaches the soil. And this nitrogen is absorbed by the plants. Apart from that, there are certain bacteria which are present in the roots of certain plants. They directly absorb this nitrogen. Apart from that, we also put nitrogen fertilizers in the soil so that the plants get nitrogen, and from the plants, because we and all organisms are dependent on plants, we all get their nitrogen from the plants. Okay, so that is how we can say that these airs, three gases in the air support life. The first one is oxygen, the second one is carbon dioxide, and the third one is nitrogen. Now we come to the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. As I just said that both these gases are very essential for all living beings. Carbon dioxide because plants need it to make their own food, and oxygen because we all need oxygen to burn the food that we are eating, to release energy during the process of respiration. We all know that animals and human beings and also plants breathe in oxygen and they release carbon dioxide. Now plants also need take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide during the process of respiration. Then this carbon dioxide is used by the plants for photosynthesis, and during the process of photosynthesis oxygen is released. So between themselves they are giving us carbon dioxide and oxygen. So whatever carbon dioxide they are releasing, they are using it to make their own food. The oxygen that they are releasing is much more as compared to the carbon dioxide that they are using. We were discussing that more oxygen is produced during the process of photosynthesis than the amount of carbon dioxide that is needed. That is why we use this oxygen. Okay, so because respiration, though respiration is a continuous process, it happens during day and night, whereas photosynthesis only happens during the day, but still the amount of oxygen that is produced is much more as compared to the amount of carbon dioxide. And we in our turn release carbon dioxide, which is used by the plants, as well as by the burning of the fuel we release certain amount of carbon dioxide, so that this cycle is maintained and the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide is maintained. It also proves that animals and plants are interdependent on each other, because we provide carbon dioxide to the plants and plants in turn give us oxygen and also the food. Now this balance is being little disturbed, and that is because of our action, too much of pollution, cutting down of trees, that is deforestation. The amount of carbon dioxide is increasing in the air and it is causing shaking this balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide, because if we have more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the temperature of the earth also rises, and we call this as a greenhouse effect or the global warming. So this balance has to be maintained. Okay, so we have to stop deforestation and pollution also. The more we burn the fossil fuel, the more amount of carbon dioxide is being released, or the more we burn petrol, coal and diesel, more carbon dioxide is being released. Similarly, if we cut down all the trees, who's going to give us oxygen? So that is why we have to stop these two activities to prevent this balance, to maintain this balance. Okay. Now we come to the importance of oxygen, of atmosphere. The first importance is that it contains all life supporting gases. We know that oxygen is also responsible for helping in burning of fuel, which is required for the energy that we are using. Then wind also gives us certain amount of energy. It makes the boats move, it makes the sailboat move, it makes the windmills move, and it brings about dispersal of seeds. Okay, so we all know that this is very very essential. Dispersal of seed means the seeds from their plants are blown away and go to different places where these plants can grow without the competition of their own family members. So wind brings in this also. Now, but the most important thing that an atmosphere does for us is it helps in maintaining the temperature of the earth. If there was no envelope of gas that was surrounding the earth would become very hot during the daytime when the sun rays are coming and very cold during the night. So this temperature variation would have been very big, and that is why and which would have been very difficult for the life to survive. So, but atmosphere maintains the temperature of the earth. So during the day, it helps us not to get it, protects the earth from extra heat, and during the night, this blanket of atmosphere protects the heat from being lost. So the temperature does not cools down that much. Okay, so it helps in maintaining the temperature of the earth. So during the day when the sun is heating up this air also, first of all it prevents the heat, too much of heat to come to the earth, and when the earth is hot enough during the night, this heat is not lost. Okay, so there is not a very big difference between the maximum and the minimum temperature. Now it also protects, and atmosphere also protects us from the UV rays of the sun. There is a special layer of gas which is not the composition of the air, which is not present in the air, but it is a separate layer of gas, the ozone, which is present in the above the stratosphere, the layers of the atmosphere. And this ozone absorbs all the UV rays of the sun, and it protects us from getting these UV rays. These UV rays are very harmful for, especially for the human beings, and they can cause skin cancer. Then the third one, and the third important part of atmosphere is it helps in bringing the weather changes. Okay, so it is what brings the changes in the weather, because as the air heats up, it becomes lighter. Okay, when the air becomes lighter, it rises up. The cool air comes and takes its place. So this is called convection current. Hot air rises up, it becomes lighter. The cool air from up falls down, and when this cycle continues, it becomes the place becomes windy. It might have rain. It might cause rainfall also. So this is what brings up the weather changes. So these are the important part of the atmosphere, and with this we finish this chapter, air around us. Thank you.